I think we're going to go ahead and get started. So I just want to say a big welcome to all of you. Thank you so much for joining us in person on this rather gray day. And for those of you online with us today, thank you so much for joining. We're thrilled to welcome you to the New England Aquarium for the Marine Conservation Action Fund MCAF Fellow Symposium. I am Elizabeth Stevenson, the director of the Marine Conservation Action Fund, or MCAF for short. I'll be starting with some housekeeping items and then share some remarks about the MCAF program before turning the podium over to our fantastic lineup of fellows. For the housekeeping parts, we are very excited to be using the Boost Lingo platform to provide simultaneous translation between English and Spanish to promote greater accessibility. This is our first time using the system, so please be patient. If some of the technology takes a few minutes, it probably more so for those of you online. For those who are joining us virtually, you can choose which language you would like on the bottom right of the screen. If you have any issues, please use the question mark icon on the bottom left of the screen, and a tech person from BoostLingo will assist you. I want to acknowledge that the BoostLingo team has provided wonderful support to us at all hours of the day because they are overseas and have just been wonderful throughout this whole thing, as has my colleague Emily Dewan, MCAF program manager, who's really taken the lead role in managing, being a liaison with them. Two of the fellows will be presenting in Spanish today, one by recorded video, and then Andres Lopez on the later panel. So you will need at that time to scan, those of you in the room, to scan the QR code, which will show again, and put in your earbuds to listen to the simultaneous translation in English. We will have some volunteers helping us during this transition, so please let us know if you're having any issues using it. And we also ask that you please silence notifications on your cell phones. And lastly, in terms of housekeeping, the exits are here and also to the back of the theater, and that's also up the stairs is also where you'll find the restrooms. Now I wanted to share with you some background about the MCAF program, which is what brings us all together here today. And it's one of the many initiatives of the New England Aquarium that extend the aquarium's work far beyond its wonderful exhibits into the Gulf of Maine and across the globe. MCAF is a small grants and fellowship program that supports the efforts of local conservation leaders in low and middle income countries across the globe. Leaders who are creating solutions that benefit ocean health, support their local communities, and advance best practices in their field. Together, their collective impact on the ocean benefits all of us. A fundamental part of the MCAF program and its evolution has been listening to and learning from the global community of ocean leaders that the program serves. The ocean leaders whom you'll hear from today are taking a multifaceted, long view approach to their work. We need to do the same to better support their long-term impact. It was this thinking that led to the creation of the MCAF Fellows Program, the foundation of which is building enduring two-way relationships with visionary ocean leaders. MCAF has also evolved to focus on supporting leaders in low and middle income countries, countries which should rather be known as the majority world, as they make up the majority of the world's coastlines and population and host key marine biodiversity hotspots. They are also home to talented conservationists who have historically been underrepresented in the field due to colonial mindsets, parachute science, and the fact that only a tiny percentage of philanthropic giving goes to local ocean conservation organizations in the majority world. By providing support to these leaders, this is the gap that MCAF is working to fill. Supporting leaders who partner with local communities and stakeholders who know the issues, the culture, the language is the best practice for advancing the intersecting goals of conservation and equity, and for achieving lasting outcomes. Now, none of this would be possible without our wonderful supporters, who include many of you here in the audience and online today, including the New England Biolabs Foundation, who has been partnered with us for many years, and Alan and Lisa Diner, who are sitting here today, whose transformational $2 million gift to the MCAF program has catalyzed our $4.9 million fundraising campaign. Thank you, Alan and Lisa. I want to thank the many generous individual donors who provide critical support to the MCAF program. We couldn't do this without you. I want to thank my aquarium colleagues across the institution, across all the departments who have provided incredible support in many different ways to making this week a success. Particularly, I want to thank my MCAF teammates, Emily and Dewan and Melinda Eady, who have just done a fantastic job managing so many different details from welcome bags to technology. So thank you both. You are incredible. And I'm so fortunate to work with you. The program would not exist without the MCAF Fellows. The MCAF Fellows are our best advisors. We are grateful to them for coming all across the globe, taking time out of their work, their busy lives, leaving families, friends, and pets at home to share their time and their work with us this week. And they are also just all around wonderful, funny, kind, and a brilliant group of leaders. So I'm so excited you're going to get to hear from them today. The sessions today and tomorrow mark the start of a full week of events for the second MCAF Fellow Summit, the first of which was held in 2019. Was anybody at the 2019 summit? All right, wonderful. Yes, the Fellow Summit. Yes, we have 3 new fellows today who were not there that you get to hear from as well. So the goal of the summit is to promote connection, networking, learning exchange, and community building among the fellows with the aquarium community and audiences in greater beyond Boston and all around the world. We have people tuning in today. The goal of today's session is for fellows to share their work with one another and all of you so that this can build the foundation of their conversations in the week, spurring idea exchange and potential collaborations. We're excited to have you join us and learn about the incredible work that each are doing. So as far as the plan for today, the fellows in each session will be presenting their work one after the other. And then all 3 or 4 of them will come back on stage for the panel discussion, which will be moderated by MCAF Fellows Kirsten Forsberg for the first session and Annie Henriquez for the second session. We won't be taking questions after each talk, so we ask you hold your questions until the Q&A, the panel Q&A. We will also be having a 20-minute break with refreshments between the first and second sessions in the theater lobby where you can connect with the fellows a little more one-on-one. So without further delay, I am thrilled to turn the stage over to the fellows. Please join me in welcoming Anna Oposa to the podium. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Boston! Woo! Okay. Director of Safe Philippine Seas. I'm from the Philippines. And outside work, I am a fur mom to my dog's ham and egg. And I read a lot of books. And you can talk to me about skincare and lipsticks. So those are my other passions. The Philippines is a country in Southeast Asia. It's the second largest archipelago in the world. And it has been called the center of marine biodiversity along with Indonesia and Malaysia. And I'm convinced that if there was a documentary to be made about the Philippine seas, it should be called Crazy Rich Oceans because it's just really diverse and there's high endemicity. So there are a lot of plants and animals you can only see in the Philippine seas. We're inspired to protect the Philippine seas, and these are the things that we do. We excite, engage, and empower. We want Filipinos to be excited about marine conservation by making it fun and relatable. And we do this by engaging different kinds of stakeholders, from corporations to grassroots communities and governments. But most importantly, we're passionate about empowering. So we want to build and share capacity. And for all our participants, which we call citizens, because we want to remind everyone that we're deeply connected to the sea, and we want them to feel confident that they can take action for marine conservation issues. So all our projects fall under 3 pillars: waste management and circular economy, shark conservation, and environmental education and citizen participation. So, our big vision is for the broader public or all Filipinos to see the ocean as an integral part of our identity, our heritage, our well being. To quote a wise philosopher named Ariel from The Little Mermaid, we want marine conservation to be part of your world. And under shark conservation, when I started out in shark conservation, the goal was to protect thresher sharks. So we worked with law enforcers, teachers, students, governments to establish the country's first shark and ray sanctuary, which was supported by MCAF. And the support from MCAF actually enabled us to create the management plan and to create a marine protected area network. And we travel all over the country also to change the way people think about sharks, which involves a lot of mascots like this, a lot of singing baby sharks, giving away stickers, and talking about why sharks are amazing. And now our work is more national. So we're developing the national framework for shark conservation and management. And we've been working on passing a law for 10 years. So we're almost there, but I say that every year. In terms of waste management and circular economy, we created this campaign called Waste Watchers. And it was focused on banning and preventing single use plastics like straws and plastic bottles. And with these projects and campaigns, we've prevented 1 million straws and 1 million plastic bottles from being used and thrown away. But now the conversation is evolving. It's not so much about banning, but about circular economy, which involves making sure that nothing is wasted. So our focus now is supporting grassroots initiatives to scale their circular economy projects through grants and mentorship. And together, in the last few years, we've collected and recycled about 190 to 90,000 kilos of waste. In environmental education and citizen participation, we train a lot of young people, and one of my co-fellows is actually one of my students before, and now he's my he's my teammate in MCAF. And we work a lot with teachers. So in the last few years, we've trained about 700 educators, mostly public school teachers, on topics like marine ecosystems, climate change, and marine litter. We also developed the Marine Litter Learning Kit, and we're working now with the Department of Education and the Department of Environment and Natural Resources to institutionalize these programs. Our goal in the next 5 years is to train 1,200 teachers, which will have an impact of about 120,000 students. We really need Filipinos to think about the sea and care about the sea. In the last 12 years, SPS has grown a lot. So this is what we were in 2011 when I just graduated college. No staff, no office. Now we have 5 core team members, 500% growth. Woo! And we still don't have an office because we can't afford it and we don't need it anyway. We have a decent operating budget and we're very active on social media. And now we have impatient optimism. When I reflect on the last 12 years, I think about it in like metaphors. So the first few years was having the wishbone and dreaming big and having these ambitions. And now it's after 10 years, it's like, okay, now we have to strengthen our backbone. And this is the organizational development, which MCAF is also supporting. So the not sexy but important things like operation manual, hiring policies, financial policies. But the biggest lesson I've learned is to always have the funny bone. Because this work is not easy. It's not always fun. It's not always inspiring or glamorous, but it's important to take problems of the sea seriously, but not take ourselves seriously. So, thank you. And if you have any questions, you can reach out to me. I turn it over to Daniel.
Thank you so much. And good afternoon, everybody. So I'm going to, let me introduce myself first. I'm Daniel Fernando from Blue Resources Trust in Sri Lanka, which is a non-profit marine research and conservation organization. And before you all get too excited, I'm going to be talking to you about dead sharks and rays. So not necessarily the living ones, but we spend much of our time counting these animals at fish markets in order to inform conservation. So I think all of you are quite aware of the issues. Sharks and rays are captured in both target and bycatch fisheries across the world, mostly driven due to demand for their products in international trade, the shark and ray fins, gill plates, and increasingly a lot of domestic consumption of shark and ray meat as well. And as a result of all of this, of course, these species are facing incredible population declines, and we have to come in and fill in this gap. For a long time, there's been a lack of management for sharks and rays simply due to a lack of knowledge. And organizations such as ours have stepped in to try and fill in this gap of knowledge and to provide the information necessary to make changes on the ground. And what we have done over the last few years are intensive fisheries surveys across the country. We have almost done 3,000 surveys, documenting over 34,000 specimens of sharks and rays at the landing sites across the country. We now have the most comprehensive and the largest species checklist in the country, and probably the largest database for species level data in the country. But what's really concerning is that over 66% of the landed species are threatened with extinction under the IUCN Red List. Of course, to keep things a little bit exciting, we don't just count dead ones, we do a little bit of work on living animals as well. So recently we started this study in partnership with some of the local fisher communities to tag sharks and rays in order to get a better understanding of their habitats and also population sizes in order to inform marine protected areas in the country. So here you can just see one of the tagged rays swimming away. But the biggest issue that we are facing is the scale of the problem. When we talk about fisheries in Sri Lanka, we're talking generally about small-scale fisheries, but the reality is it's happening at an extremely large scale. We have over 52,000 fishing vessels operating in the country. And in order to collect the data necessary, we have a team of full-time researchers working alongside international and national students and interns. And we also have a scholarship program to cover national students. So we essentially cover all their research requirements, travel, accommodation, and food to allow them to undertake their thesis projects. And the majority of interns that we have are coming and working on either their bachelor, master's, or PhD degrees. We, of course, publish a lot of this data. Here you can just see a few examples in some of the high-profile journals, which we have done alongside multiple international partnerships. And we try and get this information out as much as possible. We also do a lot of outreach, general public outreach, and a lot of scientific outreach at international scientific conferences. But that, of course, brings about its own challenges. Scientific outreach at international conferences is often restricted to those that are privileged enough to be able to afford to travel to such meetings, and also to those that have the passports that enable them to get to such countries. So in order to overcome that issue, our organization has actually placed and won the bid to host the Sharks International Conference in Sri Lanka in 2026. This is the largest conference that takes place for sharks and rays in the world. It takes place once every 4 years, and this will be its first time in Asia. And we hope that this will make the science a lot more accessible to those, particularly in South Asia. But of course, we recognize that just reaching out to scientific audiences is not sufficient. We have to reach out to those that make policy change. So we do a lot of work with international conventions such as CITES, which works with regulating international trade, with CMS, which deals with migratory species of sharks and rays, and also with the Indian Ocean Tuna Commission, which focuses on regulating regional fisheries. We also do a lot of work at a national level, enhancing capacity. So we work with various ministries and departments, and this is just one example of a shark identification training workshop that we ran for Sri Lanka Customs right in the middle of COVID, actually. But as we do these workshops and activities, we come across more and more issues. For example, working with customs has made us realize that they require a lot more identification tools to deal with products that cannot be visually identified, like meat or oil. So then to overcome such issues, we set up the first genetic laboratory focusing on sharks and rays in the country. And I could go on and on with various examples because essentially each time we take a few steps forward, we come across another hurdle that we have to overcome. One of our latest projects will be focusing on training judiciary to make them more aware of sharks and rays, and also to encourage them to use higher penalties and fines, simply because of a lot of the other capacity and outreach work we have done has resulted in government departments increasingly intercepting illegal shark fisheries and shark trade taking place. So now we have to start informing the judiciary. But I think I'm running out of time here, so I would just like to take this opportunity to say a quick thank you to all my funders and supporters, but a very special thank you to MCAF at the New England Aquarium, because MCAF believed in us a very long time ago. In fact, before our organization even formally existed, and they have been with us throughout the journey. So we're really appreciative of that. And if any of you would like to reach out to support or collaborate with us, don't hesitate. And for those of you who want to help out in your daily lives, choose your seafood wisely, save a shark, eat a human instead. Thank you so much.
Wait, how is it? Sorry. This.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you very much. And wow. So my name is Annie Enriquez. I'm from El Salvador, Pro Costa. I am so happy to be here. It's my first time in Boston, so thank you very much for this opportunity. I am here to thank you to present my work. Well, our work, because behind me and behind all of this, it's a lot of people working. So I'm going to talk about hawksbill conservation, and I'm going to talk about community engagement. So I'm going to start why hawksbill turtles, why in El Salvador, and before we start this, if I go back to 2007, hawksbill turtles were considered almost virtually extinct in El Salvador. There were no any data or registrations about hawksbill turtles. So we figured out that it was important to make a research from Mexico to Peru, trying to find out what were the most important nesting areas for hawksbill turtles. And the results were very, very important for us because from the Eastern Pacific, there are two main countries that have the most important nesting activity, which is Nicaragua and El Salvador in Bahia Jiquilisco. That's what we are. So what happened? Well, so far in El Salvador in 1999, there were not confirmed records related to hawksbill turtle nesting in El Salvador, and only 4 confirmed records, but that was not very sure. And there was just a few occurrences, but they were not that common. Now, if we go to 2008, we said the hawksbill nesting was reported like 25 years ago. So if you see, we had like really few information about hawksbill turtles, and this is how we started. We started a community participation program, and this is how we identify the most important nesting areas for hawksbill turtles, which it was really good. We find out that there were threats very important for us in order to start our conservation program. And the first one and the main one is the eggs consumption. Then we also have the fisheries bycatch that we're also working in our program. And then we have the blast fishing. So those were the 3 main threats that we figured out that we needed to start working with communities, right? So I'm going to start. These are the 3 main areas that we find out and we identified in El Salvador. That's Los Cobanos, Bahia Jiquilisco, which is the most important that we have in El Salvador and in the Eastern Pacific. And then we have Punta Mapala. So we started our work, and I like this picture because it talks about 2008 when everything started. This is a group of all regional people interested in hawksbill turtles. So that was way back when we started in 2008, the first hawksbill turtle workshop that we did in El Salvador. So then we start with our journey. And back in 2007, we started as the Eastern Pacific Hawksbill Initiative. This was an organization that it was part international and some kind of Salvadorian organization. But then in 2016, we became Procosta, which is a 100% Salvadorian organization. And now we are leading the Hawksbill Conservation in El Salvador. So I like the picture because it talks about two generations. We have our local coordinator there, which in the red shirt, and then in the middle we have his brother that he's been working with us as leader of communities. And then we have Neftali's son, which is part of the tour guides of the Hikilisco Bay, and it's helping us promoting to future generations the importance of conservation. And it's not there, but Neftali daughter is now working with us in her graduation project. She's going to become a biologist. So we are very feeling proud that, our initiative is also becoming a huge part of the work in our community. Um, let's talk about the pillars of conservation very quick. It goes hawksbill turtles and communities. We know that we cannot do this without communities, so that's why we have it there as the main support for our project. So we have biodiversity, research, and ecosystem. So part of our programs, we have the Hawksbill Conservation Program. It's all about nesting monitoring activities. We have a 15 years data collection, which is one of the most, I would say, important collections that we have in El Salvador from sea turtle conservation. And that we have in Bahía Jiclisco, Los Cóbanos, and Punta Mapala. Then we have our lobster fishing program. That's to reduce the hawksbill mortality. And we're working in Punta Mapala and Los Cóbanos, which is two main areas for lobster fishing. And we also have our in-water monitoring program. This is very important for us because we found out that Bahía de Jiclisco is not only important for nesting turtles, it's also important because we find out during our monitoring activities that there are juveniles, adults, and subadults. So this means that Bahía Jiclisco is a very important area for foraging for hawksbill turtles. So Bahía Jiclisco is all together there. And then we have the Sustainable Tourism Program. We're also trying to give alternatives to our communities. That means creating incomes so they can also feel that they are part of this commitment. And why hawksbill turtles and communities? Before we started, there were only 5% of the people supporting our program. And now in our days, 100% of the community is here and is participating. So most of the people used to sell eggs for consumption, but now in our days, people are being part of this initiative. And just to have a quick view of the numbers from 2008 to 2022, we have more than 3,000 nests protected. If you go to the 2007, there were no any data related to hawksbill turtles. So this is huge because we know that this conservation project is doing a lot for hawksbill turtle conservation. And if we take the numbers, it's been like more than 28,000 hawksbill release so far. So the numbers are talking there and are saying how important it is to continue working with our communities. So another very important element is that the communities are everything. They are helping us getting into our success project. And if we go back to 2007, we know the protection rate was 0. But now in our days, our community network has become even bigger. So that's why we're getting into the 99% protection rates in all our nesting areas. So yeah, that's the idea. Hawksbills and communities are related. We know the support of communities, it's what's making the success of our program. It's just to finish, trying to say that during COVID times, they were there for us. We couldn't be in situ with them, working with them, but they never stopped working. They said, we want to continue, conserving communities. We don't want to stop. And they did just that. So they are now part of our family, and they know that this project should continue, even though COVID or something else come. We should always overcome. So that was very important for us. This is our team. We're all together there in the different areas of El Salvador, working together. And this is our communities. That's the Hawksbill Turtle Festival and the custom contest. And yes, that's what's all about. It's about turtles, but about communities also. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Annie, and all of our speakers for those really inspiring talks. So our next speaker is going to be Ariana McCarthy. So we have a recorded video for her, but she did her recording in Spanish. So now we invite everyone to use this QR code and get out your headphones as we set that up.
Hola, mi nombre es Ariana. Estoy muy feliz de participar.
Hi, I'm Mariana, and I'm so glad to be here. This presentation is on sea turtle conservation in the southern Caribbean of Costa Rica. I'll share something more about myself. I was born in the South Caribbean in a small town called Gandoca. There was no electricity, fresh water, or growth opportunities, but luckily we live in the time of sea turtle conservation products, and my family went from being hunters to protect the species. I have met biologists from all over the world, people I admired, and I wanted to be like them when I grew up. I grew up with that dream. I was able to grow thanks to lots of people who helped me out. I found the right path, and in 2013, I became the community's first biologist. But the dream was not quite fulfilled. I had to find a job. We created an organization for sea turtle conservation, and in 2014, we started out with our first conservation project. In 2020, my dream became materialized when I was able to go back to my hometown, just like a sea turtle who wishes to go back to the beach where she was born. I wanted to come home, not to nest, but to work. Let me share something else about my organization. It's a grassroots organization that aims at protecting sea turtles. We are we have engaged in conservation activities. Our team is made up by the local people. It's a transgenerational process. We have created new generations of sea turtle protectors and advocates. There, we work with volunteers too. We have developed the environmental education program. Why do we work in this area? In the Caribbean at large, there's still a sea turtle meat and egg consumption culture. The authorities cannot meet all the goals, and this is just the tip of the iceberg. Waste management is also an issue for the sea turtle population. So we engage in night patrols protecting the females and the nests. We use satellites to monitor the sea. We're working with fishermen too. We clean the beaches from plastics and inorganic matter, and reforestation of the mangrove too. We are working on education, and we collaborate in general to assist in the community development to improve their quality of life. Specifically regarding environmental education, we have already provided training to 800 youth. They were part of 3 workshops on sea turtle conservation and the ocean from 18 different schools. And to date, 80 children from 8 schools went to Gandoca on a field trip to clean the beach, to plant mangrove, and to have the opportunity to release baby turtles. These are a few images of the work we've conducted regarding environmental education. Some of the outcomes of our efforts are that we have identified over 163 female sea turtles. They have laid over 800 nests. We've released over 40,000 neonates. Regarding the beach cleaning, we have planted over 500 mangroves. We are grateful to MCA. We want to continue working. We want to continue striving and creating new sea turtle advocate generations. This is my contact information. Thank you.
Thank you very much to all our super inspiring speakers and to everybody and to MCAF to bring us together. My name is Kirsten Forsberg. I'm another MCAF fellow. I invite you to join us tomorrow as well. We're going to have a huge group of MCAF fellows talking tomorrow as well. And just really excited and thankful for all your experiences. And I was just telling Flo, who's our fellow, this group is just so exciting to be part of. Such amazing people. You guys have seen such amazing work. It's just inspiring and such a great fun group to be around as well. So just thankful for everybody and for the opportunity to be here today. I'm going to start off with one question for you guys, and I would like to invite the audience, both here and online, to think about your questions and take advantage of this opportunity to have these amazing people in front of you. So my first question, I'll start this and then I'll head over to the audience, is you guys have already talked a bit about your work and about how it relates to communities. Could you elaborate a bit further in terms of how you do specifically integrate your work with communities and conservation to make sure that the goals of your projects are benefiting conservation, but also communities themselves, so that there's this benefit to conservation, to the species, but also to communities? How do you do that? And where do you see that going into the future? Anybody want to start?
Sure. Of course, we believe that in order for us to have success in our projects, we need to be able to connect with communities. And part of our work in Procosta has been, please, just making sure that we know what the community needs. So we can work with them. If we know what they need, we can connect our project objectives in order to make sure that we are doing what they really want and that we are able to conserve also the resource. So it's important to be part of the community, to know what they need, and to make sure that we're having, as much as we can, a long-term commitment with communities. Thank you.
Yeah, I think sort of our opinion is very similar along the lines of what was just said. What I would probably add is friendship. What one needs with communities is building this network, this getting to the stage where you have this trust with one another. And that takes time. It's not something that happens overnight. You can't just get into a community and try to make change right away. You have to build up that relationship with them. And once you have the trust of the community, then things will really change. Because then, like you said, they will tell you exactly what they need and you can help them a lot more directly. So I would say that's, a lot of the work that we do is just building friendships. And it goes to the extent where, our staff often get invited for the weddings of fishers and all that take place. So it is a very personal relationship that's built up. And it's not just with local communities, but also at higher levels, when we are working with policy at government departments, recognizing that there also has to be compromise from both sides. That's also quite essential. But yeah, friendships.
And building on what Daniel said, you have to do a lot of non-conservation things. In the Philippines, for example, karaoke is very big. So that requires going to the town plaza and singing Whitney Houston. So that that kind of fun things you have to do. But also deep listening. When I was starting out, I was very arrogant. I thought, if you have a nice work plan and a colorful Gantt chart, it's gonna work. But then sometimes the community doesn't want to do those things. So you have to be flexible to say, okay, I was wrong. We're going to start all over again and I'm going to listen. So you have to listen more than you talk.
Thank you so much. Listening, friendships, humility, right? Understanding what people need. Thank you so much. And there's a kind of like a common trend, right? Different species, different parts of the world, but this is how we do it, people. This is actually how conservation works. So I'm going to open it up to the audience. Who has any questions? We want to hear from you. Yeah, sure. So are you helping me out giving the mics? Yep. Okay, so unfortunately, Ariana is having some technical difficulties to get online. So for now, the questions would be addressed to our three panelists here. Yeah, yeah. Please, is there a mic? Sure, I'll repeat the question.
Question for Ani. So, number one, are there other species besides the hawksbill in El Salvador that you are addressing? Number two, and how do you reward or induce the local population to stop taking eggs and taking meat from the turtle and become conservationists instead of eating up what they are used to eating?
Voy a repetir.
Thank you very much. So the question just for the online audience is for Annie. If there are other species of sea turtles, and also how do you promote, how do you induce the fact of this change and shift from stop eating sea turtle meat to become sea turtle conservationists?
Very important question. So yeah, we also are conservating leatherback turtles and the green Pacific sea turtles. And yes, the engagement with communities is related also with our sustainable tourist program. We try to make sure we focus with the youngest to make them understand how important is the resource and what other alternatives we have for getting incomes for their families. So that's one of the things, and a lot of trainings for community members. We have our project of incentives, and this is part of how we can help the families to stop selling eggs for consumption and starting taking action into our initiatives. So what we do have is an incentive programs that what they do is that the nest that they have found during the patrolling nights, they go to the hatchery and they give it to us. At the end of this, part of the environmental ministry, they also provide incentives to our communities, and will also help them because they used to sell eggs as part of their income, and now we need to find out other income alternatives for them. So that's what we're doing, creating those.
We have another question over there. Yes, please go ahead. So do I need to repeat the question all the time for online? So just okay. Okay, so Ariana's joined. Welcome, Ariana. It's great to see you there. You see her on the big screen. And just repeating the question for everybody is if some of you or all of you can talk about ecotourism, how can that work? How can that benefit? And what can people do? What can people here in the audience do to support any sort of alternative livelihood, for example, through ecotourism?
Okay, I'll go first, but I think my position is quite different in the sense the opportunities for ecotourism in Sri Lanka with respect to sharks and rays are extremely limited. There's only one place in the country where you can swim with sharks, and those are black tip reef sharks. They're very common. You're not going to have tourists flying across the world to come and see those. So we have to look at other mechanisms. And of course, we hope that in the future, shark and ray populations will recover and increase to the levels where ecotourism become a possibility. But for now, we have to focus on more realistic opportunities in the country, and those are surrounding sustainable fisheries. So we do a lot, well, we're trying to do a lot when it comes to sort of marketing and generating awareness for sustainable fisheries, starting very simply with educating local communities and students to start questioning where one gets our seafood from. Because by starting asking those questions, people are forced to figure out ways to answer them. And that's how you start to realize, okay, there are issues with our fisheries. We have to better manage them. We have to better regulate them. So it's our hope that through these processes, we can get some sustainable fisheries in place. At the moment, we have only one fishery that is somewhat well managed, which is being exported incidentally to the US. It's the blue swimmer crab fishery. I think you can find some of those cans at your Whole Foods. So, that's one of the species which is relatively sustainable. So if you can get more of those out there, it relieves the burden on species like sharks and rays, and that's one way with how we can protect them as an alternative to ecotourism.
In the Philippines, there are two sharks that you can see almost guaranteed. One is the thresher shark, and one is whale sharks. And for whale sharks, it's a little controversial because there's a site that feeds them so that you can guarantee it, and it's something that we don't encourage tourists to do. So when you do your research, try to look for the operators that are the most eco-friendly. So you have to ask around which ones are the ones following the laws, because there are some that, like, with like social media, everyone wants to be in the photo with the whale shark or the thresher shark, and it disturbs their habitat. So try to go with a operator that doesn't do that.
Just a quick answer. We have two areas, which is the International Volunteer Program, and we also have the local program, which is all about hands-on research and investigation. So when people go to our project, what they do is actually that, helping us tagging turtles, measuring turtles, and making sure they are inside our investigation. And that makes everybody excited to be part of. So that's one of the main ideas for the ecotourism. We're trying to find out more.
And I want to raise the question to Ariana as well, if she can join us. Okay, I think I have a time limit.
Hola, sí, estoy escuchando.
Oh, okay.
Espero que
So maybe you
ustedes
can just put
también
your
me estén
headphones on and
escuchando y
let's
que la traducción
more
esté
practice.
Yes, I can hear you, and the translation's working wonderfully.
Should I give the question in Spanish as well? No, I'm fine. ¿Quieres que te lo diga en español, Ariana? Estamos bien. Solo tu comentario sobre el ecoturismo. ¿Qué piensas tú sobre el ecoturismo?
As you
What do you think about ecotourism?
And here, if you have anything to add to what our panelists just mentioned in terms of how does ecotourism work or not work in your country?
voy a responder en español.
I'll answer in Spanish. I hope you can hear me. Ecotourism in Costa Rica is a strong activity, generally speaking. And it's a wonderful option for sea turtles because rural villages they lack of employment opportunities. So this brings growth and growth opportunities. In my hometown, with our main project, ecotourism came about as a sustainable option for sea turtle conservation because we used to eat them. People used to eat them. So through the conservation project and adjacent businesses such as voluntary work or ecotourism, we were able to teach the people that sustainable use of sea turtles is more sustainable, that it's better to keep them alive rather than exploiting them. So my hometown's economy started to grow. And so this is wonderful. Thank you, Ariana.
for allowing to bring us together. And I guess that also kind of like answers that question, right? Like there's no one solution for conservation. There's always pros and cons, and it's always kind of like how you do things. It's not always as straightforward as one would think, right? More questions. We have Susanna at the back. Sorry, so just repeating so that everybody, talking about now ocean literacy and education, because it also seems to be a common trend between many of the fellows. How have you addressed these issues, especially coming from countries that have many times weak governance systems, weak educational systems? How do you work to push this education and ocean literacy, and any tips you may have found along the way?
There are three big challenges that come to mind. First is that Filipinos are afraid of the water, which is weird because we're the second largest archipelago in the world. So we address that by taking people to the water. So forcing them to snorkel and forcing them to see what's underwater. And then they get amazed and inspired. The second one is on the weak governance. The government changes every few years, every 3 years in the Philippines. So it's so hard to institutionalize, especially on a national level. So now we're trying to work more on the local level, which have more long term people. And the third hardest one is monitoring. So, how do we know it's effective? How do we know that we're making a difference? And with grants, it's usually just 1 year. And for education, it takes years to see the impact 3 years, 5 years, 10 years. So, as much as possible, we try to do like a delayed post test. So, like a year later, we look for our graduates or alumni and ask, how has the program made an impact on you? And of course, you're not going to get a 100% response rate, but at least you get a sample size of how it has made an impact.
Yeah. So a lot of the work that we've been doing, let's say reaching out, has been with, I would say, young adults, not so much with younger children. So with young adults, it's been focusing on projects, like I said, related to their thesis work, so that they have a very targeted approach. And that's something we've been doing with our interns as well. Uh, there are lots of issues, I think, with many internship programs across the world where, students come and then they're made to clean the boat or do some nonsense work like that. So what we try to do is develop projects which have very specific outputs within 2 or 3 months, which actually contributes towards science in some way or another. So that, of course, requires quite a lot of time as well from our side. But it's something that we feel is a lot more worthwhile, and it leaves the interns with a lot more knowledge and experience than they would have otherwise usually obtained. And as I mentioned, when it comes to sort of schools and all that, we have only been doing limited work in our local communities. One of the biggest challenges are, of course, the language barrier. We're quite fortunate because we have staff that are uh, able to cover all 3 languages that we have in Sri Lanka, so that allows us to approach most of the communities. But something that a lot of other organizations are working on in the country, and what we are encouraging, is to try and integrate marine sciences into the national academia, into the schooling curriculum, because that will, of course, have a much wider outreach, and that's something that we are quite in favor of.
Yes, in our case, challenging was at the beginning when we started. So we try to make strong alliances with national government and local government. And so far, we have like an instructor educational program. We're working with 6 schools from the islands, and that's huge. Each October, we do our Hawksbill Festival, and we're trying to integrate all the schools. And another part of our program is also getting to the universities. So we have a lot of students from university coming to us, and they're trying to gather information about sea turtles, habitat, and research. And we're trying to make connections with universities also.
Thank you. And just before we finish this panel, because this is going to have to be our last question, exactly, we're going to have to do another exercise. You're going to have to put your earbuds on again, because I would like to invite Ariana, our last speaker, to also comment. And I'm hearing her beautiful kids in the background. So talking about ocean literacy and education, Ariana, coming from your
Sí,
own experience.
en nuestro caso empezamos poco a poco, primero recibiendo estudiantes asistentes que venían. We started little by little. We started little by little with different fellows that were national and international. Then we started doing our first informal activities. We had some art activities, some activities in the field, and we also embrace any opportunity to educate our own working team, basically where those that know the best are always sharing their knowledge to the new ones. This year, thanks to the support of MCAF, we were able to launch an educational, more formal and solid work by involving 18 schools. We are formally working with the education ministry, and it has been a dream that has come true. It's been a wonderful opportunity. I believe that we've had a good opening thanks to the fact that I am myself an example and I am the fruit of educational processes. When I was a young girl, I participated in a series of educational processes that actually inspired me. And I am now an environmental educator with the full certainty that the seeds that we're planting will render great fruits. Thank you very much. Thank you, Ariana. Thank you.
By this panel. I think that kind of like words that come to mind are like action and solutions and impact. And remember, all of these organizations here and all of these stories come from small, locally led, or grassroots organizations that started from scratch, right? From the start. And so just imagine that power of how we could have the world like this if we would have, even more support and a huge global community in which definitely MCAF is spearheading towards this. So maybe Elizabeth, I don't know, like 20 years from now, we can look back and say, we have this huge global community, because that's where the solutions and the impact come, not from talking, as we were saying yesterday, but from actually acting and doing. So thank you very much. I want you to join me in applauding the MCAF fellows, and look forward to talking to you more soon.
Okay, everybody, welcome back. I hope you had a nice chance to chat over some cookies in the lobby, and we're really excited to be starting back up again. So, but now is again a time for you to scan the QR code and or return to that browser window and put in your earbuds or your headphones, because our next fellow, Andres Lopez, is going to be speaking in Spanish. So please join me in welcoming Andres to the stage. Do you want me to put it in here, or do you want to hold it? Okay.
Thank you. Mi nombre es Andrés.
My name is Andres Lopez. Good evening. I've been working for 20 years for the conservation of sharks in Costa Rica. And sharks are the hope of our oceans. And to work for the conservation of sharks involves to work together with the communities. I am from Costa Rica. Costa Rica is a country located in Central America. It's a rather small country on Earth, but quite large because it has 500,000 kilometers within the ocean, which is in itself quite a challenge for us and for the future. This is how Shark Mission started 14 years ago in 2009, where we created it in order to promote the shark conservation with an integrated focus based on research, but with a tremendous literacy, with advocacy, and in recent times, even involving the restoration of ecosystems. We have seen this. We are all connected, we are all integrated, so this is how Mission Tiburon, Mission Shark started with a great passion to preserve the great oceans of Costa Rica, and the sharks are perhaps the best emblem to protect the oceans. If we have sharks in the oceans, we have healthy oceans. And why not use the hammerhead shark as one of the most emblematic species that we have? But it's under tremendous threat. We have currently lost over 30% of the hammerhead population groups. And in the case of Costa Rica, 45% have declined in Cocos Island, given overfishing, degradation of the habitat, and also pollution. A great ocean with opportunities, but also a considerable number of threats. In the case of sharks, a lot of migrating species, such as hammerhead shark, they are not only from Costa Rica, but they are a part of many countries. So we have to connect the species, but also ecosystems and people. That is the major challenge for us. Now, when we started working, our highlight was highly technical, highly biological. We are all marine biologists, so our focus started this way, directly related with research work. But truly, we have changed this vision and we have integrated within this vision a far more inclusive model with research at its core. But this research is focused uh, within the communities, and it goes hand in hand with them. In this ecosystem model, we have different ecosystems such as rivers, ocean islands, such as Cocos Island. We have mangroves. We have young and adult sharks. So basically, it is a model that goes far beyond the fact of only doing research work. It is a far integrated and comprehensive model. Throughout these 14 years that have passed by, we've been researching, but more so, we're dedicated to the conservation of critical spaces together with the communities. Throughout these 14 years, we have labeled over uh, 2,000 sharks involving the communities in managing the species. In 2008, as a matter of fact, thanks to this information and education, we formalized together with the government the creation of the first shark sanctuary in Costa Rica, located in the coastal area where we have a lot, many more threats that in other places where we have hammerhead sharks like the ocean islands. Now, within this model, we've got to work together with ecosystems and involving all the stakeholders of these ecosystems. And it involves rivers, mangroves, ocean islands. And when we talk about these, we have so many actors, such as traditional fishermen, but more recently, we have other actors that are directly involved in the marine conservation, such as women, girls, students, youth, obviously the government, and community leaders. Ocean education is quite powerful, and we have to dedicate a lot of time to it. Since we started, we have a strong education program in place. We currently have an education station where we have had over 10,000 children participating in the past 10 years. They are the future. They are the ones that will influence their parents. So we will have wonderful seeds with them. Not all of them will turn out, but some will certainly germinate. So within this vision of a single program, we have now a women empowerment group. They are called Hammerhead Women. There are 20 women, and they are actually doing handcrafts and creating products inspired in the hammerhead shark. And that provides resources for them, but other community stakeholders. For example, with the silver of the bracelets, we've been able to support 100 girls with their school supplies and uniforms so they will not abandon their schooling. It's critical that girls will continue with their studies and dream big within this integrated model. As I was relating to you, we have to work with as many stakeholders as we can. Obviously, the government sector is important. In recent years, we have worked together in, in training the Coast Guard, park guards, and many other communities that have been to get involved in new circular economy models. This blue economy model by changing that idea that the ocean will only provide us fish, but it provides us so many more things. And to approach communities through all of these services is in itself the real future to save our species and our oceans too. More recently, we started a program of mangroves restoration. This is thanks to this particular vision of integrating not only ecosystems but also communities. And as a matter of fact, in the past 2 years, we will be planting 25,000 trees of mangroves, and it's 20 hectares in of the hammerhead area where the hammerhead sharks are born. And we actually have a new community area of seashell products in Costa Rica, where we have over 50 fishermen that are involved in this basic mangrove reforestation. As we were telling you at the beginning of this presentation, our dream is to preserve sharks with data and research work. But the dream goes far beyond. It has to do with connections because it's all about connections, and we're finally connected, all of us, habitats, species, stakeholders, and nature. The sharks of hope are our true hope. If we have sharks, we have healthy oceans. So let me conclude my presentation just by saying to you that we have to think about the future in the new generations. This is key. And our time on this earth is rather quick. So it is a true pleasure for me to be able to share with you what we're doing in Costa Rica. Thank you very much.
Hi, well, thank you to New England Aquarium for hosting this and MCAF Summit to bring us all together. It's really awesome to be here in Boston. And I'm Lucy Keith Jine, the director of the African Aquatic Conservation Fund. We are based in Senegal, West Africa. I've been working with marine mammals for 36 years and living and working in Africa for 17 years. I'd like you to imagine an animal that's so rare that it is almost never seen. It's there's less than 20 photos of it in the wild ever taken. And it's so shy and elusive that it's basically unknown how many exist. Its greatest threats are habitat destruction and human poaching. And mostly it's seen after people have killed it. It's listed as vulnerable on the IUCN Red List and we're still learning the most basic things about it. For example, we don't know the age of sexual maturity. We don't know how long the young are dependent on their mom, or normal blood values, and so much more. I could be talking about this animal because all those statements are true for it. Most people know what a snow leopard is when I talk about it. But I'm actually talking about this animal, the African manatee, which most people don't even know exist. And people are always surprised to learn that there are manatees in Africa. So I tell people that African manatees are basically an underwater snow leopard, because that way you can begin to understand the challenges that we face in studying them. Oh, sorry. So African manatees live in remote mangrove channels, the nearshore ocean, lagoons, rivers, and lakes in 21 African countries. The area is larger than the continental United States. So this map is really only showing you a few of the major rivers in Africa, but there are literally thousands of other rivers not shown here. Hydroelectric dams in every river are isolating manatees, and many smaller rivers also have agricultural dams. This past June, we confirmed manatees near the source of the Niger River in the area that you see in the blue circle in Guinea for the first time, which is more than 3,620 kilometers or 2,250 miles inland from the ocean. I mean, this is the first time we've discovered this population, and literally nothing is known about it. So At the same time, they're under threat from illegal hunting, capture in fisheries, and dams. Habitat destruction and watercraft mortality are emerging threats to the species. So documenting and assessing the threats and working to mitigate them are the most important aspects of our work. So we do this by partnering with communities, marine protected areas, other government and nonprofit wildlife organizations to raise awareness and to try to find solutions, while also educating people about the benefits of protecting manatees. We also use genetics to learn where distinct populations of manatees are, and this will eventually help us to estimate population numbers once we have more than 100 samples, but those samples are very hard to get. So more recently, we started using environmental or eDNA, which we can collect from water samples that are then filtered, and we're able to detect the manatee's DNA in the laboratory. So far, I've identified 4 populations of African manatees that you can see in the circles. The northern populations in green are completely separated from the eastern and southern populations shown in blue. And within the bigger circles, you have the Senegal River and the Niger River populations, which are also separate. But we have few samples from any of these areas, so the more samples we get, the more populations we're likely to identify. We also do feeding ecology and acoustic studies for African manatees. The feeding study is actually important because, unlike the other manatee species, these guys eat fish and mollusks in addition to plants. And so that means that their habitat requirements are quite different. And acoustic studies that we're doing in Cameroon, Nigeria, and Senegal are teaching us where manatees spend their time. Another species that most people have not heard of is the Atlantic humpback dolphin, which is one of the top 5 rarest dolphins in the world. They occur in at least 13 African countries on the western side of the continent, and most populations are very small. There's about 15 to 40 animals in each population. However, in Senegal, we're fortunate to have the largest population, recently estimated at 469 individuals, by the master's thesis of my research assistant, Jana Sek, whose work is being supported by an MCAF grant. These dolphins face threats, particularly from bycatch in fisheries. Unlike African manatees, we can readily see the dolphins on every survey. And so to study this rare species, we're using photo identification of the distinct dorsal fins for photo ID, passive acoustics, and eDNA sampling, and of course, recovering stranded carcasses. So these are just 2 quick examples of our marine mammal projects, but the goals are the same throughout our work: to conserve endangered marine mammal species and their habitats by reducing threats, rescuing stranded animals, understanding the needs of these unique animals, and working in partnership with local communities while raising awareness to the value of these species to younger generations. So thank you so much for your attention, and this is, you can find us on the web. Thanks. It's that one right there.
This one is?
Yeah, push this big one. There you go.
This one is?
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Hello. My name is Thomas Diagne. I am from Senegal, West Africa. And I get involved in sea turtle conservation in the year 2000, like 23 years ago. Because, in fact, I was contacted by, I get involved by accident, to be honest. What's happened is I was working. First of all, I have 30 years of turtle conservation, actually. But I started with freshwater turtle and tortoises and built a rescue facility near Dakar in Senegal, who are named the Village des Tortues. And we raised awareness, and we was really well known about turtle conservation, but they don't realize at that moment I don't have experience for sea turtle. And they approached me, the people of ICN approached me and say, Thomas, we have a project to face an issue with marine sea turtle who was in the area of central Senegal and who was decimated by poaching. And we decided to hire you as a consultant. We have money for that and we are gonna do that. And I say, but I have no experience for turtle. And they say, but you are the turtle man. Sea turtle, freshwater turtle, tortoise, they are all the same. Just go ahead. That is the story who lead me in turtle conservation. And after all these years, what I realize is you have here all the species of sea turtle who occur in West Africa. For 7 species of sea turtle we have worldwide, 6 of them can be found in West Africa in different way because they need, sea turtle are highly migratory species who need to just go to different type of habitat during their life cycle. And these habitat can be found not only in one country, but in different countries. They are really well known as a mariner who can cover huge distances in order to find their feeding area or their nesting area. This is pictures of West Africa map here. Sorry. You have my country here. I live near here. And all these areas are seagrass bed. And in the south here, you have the island of Guinea-Bissau, where also sea turtle, green sea turtle come to nest. So then that is the map of West Africa. You can see West Africa here. And sea turtle migrate and use the country in the north is Mauritania, and they go all the way, like usually more than 3,000 kilometers south in order to find their ground for nesting ground. So in order to do something meaningful for them, people need to understand you need always to have a vision, regional vision, regional approach can always help for sea turtle conservation. The reason these animals cover all these big distance in order in their life cycle, you have different reasons. Why? Because I was always thinking, why these animals cannot just like a tortoise. The tortoise don't cover all these distances, and they just sit in some kind of area and have their life cycle over there. But sea turtle are not like that. And the reason they are not like that is here, they need to find a place to forage. And that is a green sea turtle who are eating, using seagrass bed, eating seagrasses when they reach adulthood. When they are young, they are not like that. They are more carnivorous. So in order to do well, they need different type of habitat who are not in, who are beyond who need bigger, sorry, who need a bigger range in order to find this type of habitat they need during their life cycle. Here in the this photo, this picture was taken by drone in Guinea-Bissau, the island in the south of my country, and you see how sea turtle, the green sea turtle, use this nesting habitat, the high density of sea turtle coming in this area. So all these areas are enclosed to a regional scale. Senegal is important, but is not the only country involved in sea turtle conservation. You have different other country too. And what you see here is the different threats for sea turtle in West Africa. Mostly habitat loss, the destruction of habitat, but also the poaching and also the interaction with fishery. Most of the turtle get caught in accidentally in the fishing net. And 4 years ago, I was involved in a process of doing what we name a regional approach with a project, a regional project named the Alliance for Sea Turtle Conservation in West Africa. The country you see here is the country involved in the process. So then our goals was to protect the different area, key area, the feeding area, and also to address the what is it, to address the bycatch, the sea turtle bycatch in this area. What we plan to do in the future, like in the coming years, is to be able to raise enough money, 200,000, in order to build a sea turtle rescue facility who will involve 4 countries. You see their flag in the left of the side here. And this rescue facility is going to be the first rescue facility for sea turtle in West Africa, and will allow for to rescue 100 sea turtle each year, rehabilitate them, and release them back in their environment. That is one of our goals. Oh, sorry. I would like to thank Marine Conservation Action Fund for the help, all the help they've provided to this initiative for my organization to be able to emphasize all this work, and also all the colleagues around West Africa who are partnershiping with us and other organizations in the Alliance for Protecting the Sea Turtle in West Africa. Thank you.
Thank you so much for those excellent presentations. I'm excited to invite the speakers to come back to the stage and have a seat up here. And I'm thrilled to have Annie Henriquez serve as our moderator for this session.
Okay, thank you very much, everyone. I am so honored to be the moderator of Andres, Lucy, and Tomas. Thank you very much for your work. Thank you for what you do for conservation and communities. And we all want to know more about your work. And you each have a strong focus on supporting emerging conservation leaders in your countries. So, can you speak about the importance of these programs and what you have learned from working with early career practitioners?
Okay, there, got the mic on. Um, you know, obviously, I'm not from Senegal and I'm not from West Africa, but I've lived there a long time, and I feel very strongly that people from the countries need to be more invested and excited to protect the marine environment. And I love working with young people, and I really feel that it's just so important to excite and engage people from the country. So right now, African Aquatic Conservation Fund is doing school programs in Joel, Central Africa, Central Senegal, where we live, that's reaching about 2,000 kids from 8 schools each year. And we'd really like to expand that, or we're hoping to expand that. Our programs cover marine mammals and sea turtles in partnership, Tomas and I, with this team that we work with. In addition, we both support graduate students, which for me is super important that they be able to not only study in school, but then to have a career in the field afterwards. So between the turtle work and the marine mammal work, we've hired, I think, at least 6 or 7 people from the University of Dakar at this point. And it's really just making sure that there's a legacy in the future for people from Senegal and from Guinea, also where I work, to to become invested and be able to become leaders in conservation in their country.
Thank you. This is an interesting question because always when you have 30 years of turtle conservation and you see how much change is going to take time and energy and effort, you realize you are not going to be able in your lifetime to achieve so much. And you need to find a strategy to inspire other people. In the Institute, what we started is, first of all, in the education program, we started to do something with the Senegal Sea Turtle Awareness Day. Each year, we have a national Sea Turtle Awareness Day where is some kind of big activity where you have the booth open for school who come visit and learn about sea turtle conservation and all these things. And you have also big panels at the town hall of Joal, organized beach cleanup, and all this activity gathered in like 3 to 4 days. But the first edition was 5 days, but at the end we realized 5 days is too much for the staff, and we was exhausted, and we decided, okay, we need to be more realistic the next year, and we cut it short to 3 days. But it's just some kind of event we use to promote conservation, because we realize we need to inspire other people in order to get engaged in conservation. What's happened, particularly in Africa, is we are not numerous in for people who have this conservation perspective or work are not numerous. And we need to find a strategy to increase these people, like not only biologists, but just people who are doing the right things, like trying to reduce plastic waste and all these things. That is not only biologists who can make the change. That is something people need to understand. If change is going to happen, biologists are maybe going to be the starter for that. But this is the public, the global public, who can make change for the future. That is important. And also, the last things we did is the African Scholarship Program for scholar and wildlife professional, and also we invite in the African Scholarship Program the young student who come to Senegal to learn about sea turtle conservation activity, to learn about biology and technique of conservation. And we hope with the African Scholarship Program each year with different sessions, freshwater turtle and tortoises and marine turtle, to inspire new career in terms of conservation for Africa. That is something we have done, but we need to keep doing that in order to promote some hope.
Yes, I think. I tried to English. um, yes, it's a good question because it's the future. We need work more with the new generation. In the early careers, professional is very important because I remember when I studied marine biologists, nobody talk about conservation, talk about production, fisheries, but not about conservation. And we need talk about conservation. This is the moment the ocean is dead. We need to involve the new generation. Actually, 2 years ago, we started the Blue Fellowship. Is the Becca Sul name. Is thanks to the MCAF support. And now we have different early careers professional talk about the importance of the care our ocean and make research for management. This is the key, research for management. We don't have time now. We need action.
Thank you very much. I would like to invite all the audience have any questions, and also all the ones that are participating in the live session, in case you would like to ask question. Okay. Yes.
In Costa Rica, are you working on shark preservation with any of the recreational dive groups? Because there's a lot of diving, recreational diving in Cocos and Montebello. Is there any help from them?
So I'm just going to repeat the question. So in Costa Rica, he wants to know if you're working with the diving group and how how you can help them. How is the interaction with them?
It's a good question. For example, with sharks in Costa Rica, we have two phases. One phase in the oceanic island, for example, with the hammerhead in the oceanic island, the divers paid a lot of money, actually average $5,000, $6,000 for go to share with the hammerhead. But the funds don't come back to the communities. This is the real challenges for us. Connect the people. We try to do this, for example, with the woman ladies, the hammerhead ladies, because they make artisanals. We sell the artisanals in the overnight vessels, and the tourists help us to get more funds for the project, and we have good memories about divers and connection, because when the people stayed in the ocean with 100 sharks, the life changed, and we need to connect more, because actually we have a big gap in the oceanic population connect with the nursery grounds for example, for hammerhead.
Thank you, Andres. Any other questions? Thank you. Okay, yes. So we have a question like, what kind of alternative or initiative you have and the challenges that you have overcome in your project?
I think she's asking about the hydroelectric dams. So, yeah, the major dams are a lot. The ones that you saw on the map, mostly they already exist. There are some under construction. In fact, there are quite a few under construction. So for those, we are actually trying to work with the managers of those dams. Unfortunately, those dams don't even let boats or fish pass. So they're huge, huge dams. And so, and to be honest, nobody's going to change the design of those dams to benefit manatees or even boats. So it's more a question of, now that these populations are becoming isolated, what do we do to keep them from being isolated? The other problem is when they're in small segments of river between two dams, it's very easy to hunt them out. They can more easily be killed because they're basically trapped. So there's sort of a two-pronged approach. One is to work with the communities to try to get them to stop hunting, whether that's through alternative livelihood programs or education, to try to find other ways for them to make a living than killing manatees. Fortunately, in the Upper Niger River and the Senegal River, what we found is that manatees are respected, as they believe in a myth that the manatee was once human. And so they see them as ancestors, if you will. And so they actually don't hunt them very much. So in that way, we're working with communities to try to make them manatee ambassadors and protectors, so that they get excited about, you can see this animal. There also is a belief that where manatees are, there are more fish because they attract fish to them. And so we sort of work with that as well. In terms of the actual dam managers, again, we just try to make them aware. A lot of them aren't even aware that there are manatees in the rivers or that what a manatee is. And so that kind of awareness raising is something that we are definitely working on, particularly in two dams that are under construction that are going to affect rivers in Guinea. And then lastly, for some of the small agricultural dams where there's literally infrastructure that either blocks manatees or can crush them in doorways and gates, we've worked with two separate dams now. One has been modified. They actually had bars, so when they opened the gates, there were bars, so the manatees couldn't pass. They've removed those bars, and now manatees can move freely when the doors are open. And the second dam sort of had the opposite problem. It's a very narrow opening that's an overflow for when there's too much water. And so the doors are mostly open and manatees can go. But when the height of the rainy season comes and it's too much water, they shut the doors, and there's literally a space this big that manatees try to squeeze through, and larger ones get trapped and drown. So we're actually working with that dam to grate it off so that they can no longer enter that small passage. So again, as others have said, it takes a very long time working with these kind of agencies and government, but at least we're trying to make them aware and try to think of solutions.
Thank you. We have one more question. Yes.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Gonna repeat the question. Sorry. The question is that if you were able to collaborate with the marine sea turtle conservation here at the aquarium. Thank you very much.
Yeah, in fact, I was inspired by my early stay here by the sea turtle rescue you have in Quincy. with Charlie Innes, Connie Merigo, and all these people. But the issue you guys have here is cold stress, and cold stress for the Kemp's Ridley sea turtle who come from the Cape Cod Peninsula and get caught and couldn't just go around and go south in the time where the winter is taking place. But we don't have cold stress issue in Senegal. Believe me, that is not a possibility. And instead, we have so many fishing vessels who are going near to shore to follow different type of fish activity, and they caught so many sea turtle and drown them in their nets and release them and kill them, and that is an issue. And also another issue is the fishermen know exactly where to go to catch turtle, and sometimes if fishing is not giving enough revenue or money, they are tempted to go over there, poach the turtle, and sell the meat. And you have these two threats we need to face. And also, when they catch sometimes sea turtle in their nets, they have trauma because the fishing net are cutting some flipper or something like that. Usually, we find all these animals stranded in the beach, still alive, but cannot be released straight in the sea. They need a rehab phase. That's why by monitoring the beach all the time and seeing these being confronted with in this type of situation, I decided it's going to be good to have a rescue facility where we can give a second chance to these numerous turtle who are caught sometime accidentally, sometime not, and give them a second chance. That is the reason I think, in our case, a rescue facility for sea turtle is something useful. Thank you. And also, New England Aquarium, since the beginning, donate tanks and all these things. But all these tanks now, this year, because we fixed now so many administrative authorization we needed to have because they are protected species and all these things. That is a process that is not easy to put in place. But now we are confident that next year we can gonna break ground and start getting going the sea turtle rescue facility. Is gonna do more fundraising, of course. We have a little bit of money, but not never enough. But we need to fundraise more. Thank you.
Thank you, Thomas. Any other question? Yes. So yeah, he's asking about the manatee and what is the migration? Is it freshwater or saltwater? Let us know.
So it's both. All manatee species actually need to drink fresh water. They cannot get enough fresh water from their food, the plants they eat, or whatever it is that they're eating. And so they all need fresh water, Florida as well. But they do go out in the nearshore ocean into seagrass beds. Seagrass is actually some of their favorite food. And so coastally, they can live in the nearshore ocean. In Florida, they've determined that manatees need to drink fresh water about once a week. So if they live out on the seagrass flats, they tend to go up a river, or in Florida, they'll go to a marina where someone will put a handy hose over a dock and they can drink fresh water. In Africa, in Senegal and down the coast in Guinea-Bissau and Guinea, there's actually a network of freshwater springs within the nearshore environment and mangroves. And so manatees know those places and they can literally go drink fresh water from a series of springs. But to answer your question, I mean, they do go up rivers and they can live their entire lives in fresh water. Thereby, they don't have to worry about going somewhere to drink it. And so when you see them so far up rivers like the Niger River and the Senegal River, they actually got up there over 1 million years ago. They went up those rivers long before there were dams. And in fact, the geology has changed so much in places like Nigeria that there are now waterfalls that manatees would not be able to ascend, but they've just been up there for so long. Which is why I'm really interested in this population in Guinea, because they're so far inland, and they're just way above not only numerous dams but numerous waterfalls and places. So they're kind of interesting to study. It also just is why you can't transplant a manatee that lives in the coastal environment to a river. That they don't eat the same foods, they don't really know how to survive. And so you can't just say, oh, well, this population is depleted, we're going to take some coastal manatees and plop them up this river. And so it's a little bit challenging to figure out how to conserve them while being very understanding of their different lifestyles. But I find that super fascinating, frankly. I think they live in the most diverse kinds of habitats of any of the manatee species. I mean, they literally live in everything from rivers in the desert to Central African rainforest to mangrove systems on the coast.
Thank you. One more question. Okay, yes. So the question will be, how is your coordination in a regional part related to your work?
Yes. In fact, when I started in 2000, my focus was Senegal. And because I didn't have a clear understanding about what's going on and how the biology of the species, and the more I learn about the species and also the region, where is their feeding area, where is their nesting area, and the migratory movement they are, because in that moment, this type of data was not available. And after that, with the help of CMS and different other university, I'm noticing the University of Dakar and the University of Spain and Portugal, they get involved, and scientists get involved of gathering data and publishing data. And now we understand how all these habitats are interconnected between different countries. That is what just give us a possibility to understand that is the good approach to have, regional approach. But one NGO is too small in order to implement that. We decided to launch. We have an opportunity with a project named the PRCM. That's mean the Coastal West African Coastal project, who was launched by World Bank. And inside you have different component, habitat, species, and different policy and everything. And I was part of the team who was mandate to see species and habitat and figure out which species needed regional protection or regional engagement in order to promote their protection. That is where me and different colleagues in different countries, Sierra Leone, we had seven countries involved in this process. And we get funded by 6 years of doing visit exchanges between Cabo Verde, who are the place where Careta, loggerhead are nesting, and Guinea-Bissau, this is the place where the green sea turtle are nesting. And after the 6 year, we now know exactly what to do. But what's happened is some of the stakeholder inside, because that is a big movement where you have different stakeholder. NGO can last long, but usually government stakeholder, after they change position, we lose them. That is something what happened in our alliance, but the alliance is still running and we are getting result, but NGO and government service, government component also had to sit in the table and work together, and that is important.
Thank you very much, Andres, Thomas, and Lucy, for all your work. It's a motivation and inspiring for conservation and communities. Thanks a lot. It's big applause to them. Thanks.